Good morning and welcome to the new episode of Dr. Lamba's Awakening. We in this century, rather right from the 20th century, are very fond of saying we want freedom. Fine. What freedom do we want? Political or economic? Yes, most of the people have got the political freedom. And that's welcome. As a matter of fact, political freedom is sine qua non. But sine qua non of civilization. But, as I said, political freedom without economic freedom is meaningless. What difference does it make whether if you have a right to vote, but your right to vote is controlled by your boss, as it happens in most of parts of the world, especially in India and Pakistan. In Pakistan, the landlord, the Badera, issues an order that you will vote for him, and nobody dares cross him. And they know it. If they do, they'll have to pay hell for that. In India, they are either bought with a few rupees or their belts are snatched. And there have been cases when the gangsters have gone to the polling booths, snatched all the ballot papers, stamped them for the candidate, put them in the ballot box and left. Is that freedom? Because those people are economically not free. And apart from that, today there are 50 million slaves in this world. 50 million. And if we compare the number of slaves with the year of 2016, the number of people in modern slavery has risen in these 6 years by 9.3 million. And these are the numbers which have been calculated, and you can be sure there is an error of 20 to 30%. Because in vast majority of the countries of Asia, Africa, Latin America, you cannot accept what's given because most of the people are not even approached. And I was shocked to see the index published in the Economic Freedom of the World, which measures the degree to which the policies and the institutions of the countries are supportive of the economic freedom. The cornerstone of economic freedom are A. Personal choice, B. Voluntary exchange, C. Freedom to enter markets and compete, and D. Security of the persons coupled with security of the private owned property. Now, when these parameters are not there, when your personal choice is dependent on somebody else, when you don't have a freedom to enter market and compete because of the various factors. For example, in some states in Bihar, if you don't belong to a typical caste, you cannot do it. In Mumbai, there have been cases that the people of one community could not get the houses on rent. If they can't get the houses on rent, how can they get the offices and market? And there have been people in Pakistan, in India, when they started business, the people went there and even asked them to change the name of the business. 42 data points are used by this freedom of the world, economic freedom of the world, to construct a summary index, along with the gender legal rights adjustment to measure the extent to which women are free. And let me tell you, women, the third world or even the developing world, are free to a limited extent. They are free as long as they do not impinge on the chauvinistic male pigs. So, If I have to measure the degree of economic freedom, then there are five broad areas. First is the size of the government. As government spending, taxation, and government controls enterprises increase, then the government decision making is substituted for individual choice and economic freedom is reduced. And that is why there is no economic freedom in countries like Russia, China, Albania, North Korea, and so on. The monolith. The government decides what you have got to do, what you will buy, where would you buy, at what price would you buy, which business you enter. Till recently in India, you had to complete 2017 different formalities to start a major business. So this is number one area which restricts economic freedom. Second is legal system and property rights. Property of persons and their rightfully acquired property is a central element of both economic freedom and civil society. But if you buy a property and then you find the property is not yours, it has been sold to a number of people. And if you go to a court of law, it might take generations for the cases to be decided. And I have seen this happen. If the government doesn't protect the people and their right to own the property, and justice is not immediate, then economic freedom is jeopardized. It's an important function, rather the most important function, to protect the life and the limb of the people and the property of the people. Third broad area is sound money. More the inflation, more the depreciation of the money. Inflation, and especially hyperinflation, erodes the value of rightfully earned wages and savings. Sound money is thus essential to protect property rights. You know the story of two brothers. At the time of Hitler, there was a hyperinflation. And the dad died and he left his property, divided it into two. Gave both sons the equal property. The elder one, sensible as he was, invested it in property, in houses. And the younger one started drinking. He would drink day in and day out and fill the room with the empty bottles. After a few years, the rich man who had put the money in stocks, shares, investments found that all those were not even worth a scrap of paper. But the younger brother, who was just drinking and saving the bottles, started selling the bottles and became much richer than the elder brother. That is the tragedy of inflation. Though an equivocal story, I don't know whether it's fact or not, but we read it long back. So sound money is one of the 5 pillars for providing economic freedom to the people. And that is possible, inflation, that the property is protected. When inflation is not only high but also volatile, you are never sure when it's coming. Today the prices increase by 5%. In the afternoon they fall by 3%, next day they rise by 15%, and so on. It's volatile. So it's very difficult for the individuals to plan for the future. And if they cannot plan for the future, they can, if they cannot plan for the future, they can hardly use economic freedom, even if it's available to them effectively, capably. Then the fourth pillar is freedom to trade internationally. Now, this is very important. For example, in Canada, what to talk of trading internationally, which is comparatively easier, the inter-provincial trade barriers are so many that they are a hurdle to honest trade. And economic freedom thus is curtailed. The inter-provincial trade barriers, the national trade barriers, the agreements restricting the imports or exports, and the currency valuations. All this is difficult. Freedom to exchange in its broadest sense, buying, selling, making contracts, and so on, is essential to economic freedom. So, you see, there is a connectivity in all these. I just talked of the making contracts. Now, if the legal system and protection of the property rights is not there, protected, the contracts have no value. So, the freedom to trade internationally is important, but then it's connected with the other factors as well. So, if this freedom to trade internationally is not there, if there are restrictions, the government gives subsidies, gives a duty clawback and so on, then you can be sure your economic freedom is not really freedom. And exchange, but then let me tell you, the exchange, freedom to exchange does not include businesses and individuals in other nations. And the fifth major pillar is the regulations. Governments not only use a number of tools to limit the right to exchange, they may also impose regulations which are killing, which limit the right to exchange, gain credit, hire or work for whom you wish, or freely operate your business. For example, at one time it was being thought in India that the private businesses should be forced to employ 25% from scheduled costs. Married, disregarded. The private sector cannot do that. Then, apart from these 5 parameters, gender legal right adjustment is a must. The index published in the Economic Freedom of the World now includes an adjustment for the gender disparity token to occur. Because in many nations, women are not legally accorded the same level of economic freedom as men. So the gender disparity index and its use in making the adjustment is extremely important. And it matters because women are 50% of the population, if not more. So Economic Freedom World Index was pertinent to 165 countries. And would you believe, out of these 165 countries, more than 150 countries do not provide economic freedom fully. Some provide it 80%, some provide 70%, some provide zero. So it's from 0 to 75% freedom. Now the people who are living in the countries where 0 or 5 or 10 or say less than 60%, are they really free? Because as I said, economic freedom is the basic ingredient of the political freedom. And this data, if you want to see, is available for 5 years. It's possible for us to analyze the impact of cross-country differences. On the whole, the lack of economic freedom and shows the return of hyper-nationalism, populism, and also a tendency to authoritarianism. When the people don't have freedom, they don't care what sort of political leadership they have. They want first economic balance, and that's why immediately after partition, many people of the older generation, not of my generation, would say British Raj was better, but at least we were free to do what we wanted. Even if they weren't serfs, they knew that the justice was there because the judges and the administrators were not at the beck and call of the politicians. They were much more honest. And that was in India, that was in Pakistan, that was all over. But of course, that thing is over. But let's not forget one thing, that until and unless you provide economic freedom to the people, all this talk of democracy and freedom is a hoax to cheat and deceive people, to mislead people, and to exploit them for your ulterior purposes.